The dense forest of the Bwindi Wildlife Sanctuary was a world unto itself. Towering mahogany trees stretched their gnarled branches toward the sky, their leaves filtering the sunlight into a mosaic of green and gold. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint, sweet tang of wild orchids. Somewhere in the distance, the low rumble of thunder echoed, a harbinger of the approaching storm. But for now, the forest was still, as if holding its breath. Deep within the heart of the sanctuary, a herd of elephants moved with deliberate grace. Their massive forms cast long shadows that danced across the forest floor, blending with the dappled light. At the front of the herd was an old matriarch, her tusks worn and her ears scarred from decades of survival. She moved with the confidence of one who had seen countless storms, her trunk swaying gently as she led her family toward a hidden waterhole. The waterhole was a lifeline in the dry season, a small muddy pool nestled between the roots of an ancient fig tree. The elephants approached cautiously, their ears twitching as they scanned the surroundings. The forest was never truly silent, but today it felt unnervingly still. Even the birds, usually a chorus of chatter, had fallen quiet. The matriarch paused at the edge of the waterhole, her trunk testing the air. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the way the earth vibrated beneath her feet, in the faint, acrid scent that lingered on the breeze. Her family gathered behind her, their low rumbles of concern echoing through the trees. As the elephants drank, the tension in the air grew palpable. The younger calves stayed close to their mothers, their small trunks clutching at the adults' tails. The matriarch raised her head, her ears fanning out as she listened. The forest seemed to close in around them, the shadows deepening as the storm clouds gathered overhead. Then it came, a sound that sent a shiver through the herd, a low, guttural growl, barely audible but unmistakable. The matriarch's ears snapped forward, her body tensing. She turned her massive head, her eyes scanning the underbrush. The growl came again, closer this time, accompanied by the faint rustle of leaves. The herd froze, their trunks raised in alarm. The matriarch stepped forward, her tusks lowered in a defensive posture. She could see movement now, a flicker of tawny fur among the shadows. A lioness emerged from the undergrowth, her golden eyes fixed on the herd. She was lean and hungry, her ribs visible beneath her sleek coat. Behind her, two more lionesses appeared, their movements silent and deliberate. The elephants formed a protective circle around the calves, their trunks raised and ears flared. The matriarch let out a deep, resonant rumble, a warning that reverberated through the forest. The lionesses hesitated, their eyes darting between the elephants and the waterhole. They were desperate, driven by hunger, but they knew better than to challenge a full-grown elephant. For a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a sudden deafening crack, the storm broke. Rain poured from the sky, turning the forest floor into a slippery, muddy mess. The lionesses retreated into the shadows, their growls fading into the distance. The elephants remained vigilant, their bodies tense as the rain soaked their hides. But the storm was not the only danger. As the rain fell, the matriarch noticed something else. A faint metallic glint among the trees. She moved closer, her trunk probing the air. There, half buried in the mud, was a snare. Its cruel, rusted jaws were open, waiting for an unsuspecting victim. The matriarch let out a low, mournful rumble, her trunk brushing against the snare. She had seen these before, and she knew what they meant. The herd moved on, their pace quickening as the rain continued to fall. The matriarch led them away from the waterhole, her mind racing. The forest, once a sanctuary, was no longer safe. The presence of the lionesses was a natural threat, one she could understand. But the snare? That was something else entirely. It was a reminder of the humans who encroached on their territory, who saw the forest as a resource to be exploited rather than a home to be respected. As the herd moved deeper into the forest, the tension began to ease. The rain softened to a gentle drizzle and the birds resumed their songs, but the matriarch could not shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the air. She knew that the forest was changing, that the balance of life was shifting in ways she could not fully comprehend. The story of the elephants and the lionesses was just one chapter in the larger tale of the forest, but as the matriarch led her family through the rain-soaked trees, she knew that their survival depended on more than just strength and instinct. It depended on their ability to adapt, to navigate the ever-changing landscape of their world. And so the elephants moved on, their shadows blending with the forest as they disappeared into the mist. The storm had passed, but the echoes of its fury lingered, a reminder of the fragile beauty and relentless struggle of life in the wild. The herd trudged onward, their massive feet sinking into the softened earth. The rain had turned the forest floor into a labyrinth of mud and tangled roots, but the matriarch moved with unwavering determination. Her family followed closely, their trunks occasionally brushing against one another for reassurance. The younger calves, still shaken by the encounter with the lionesses, stayed nestled between the adults, their wide eyes scanning the shadows. As they moved deeper into the forest, the trees grew denser, their canopies forming a thick roof that blocked out much of the remaining light. The air was cooler here, heavy with the scent of moss and decaying leaves. The matriarch's ears twitched as she listened for any sign of danger. The forest was alive with the sounds of dripping water and the occasional rustle of small creatures, but the larger predators seemed to have retreated. For now. Hours passed, and the rain finally ceased. The forest began to dry, the sunlight breaking through the canopy in scattered beams. The herd reached a small clearing, where the ground was firmer and the grass was lush. The matriarch paused, her trunk testing the air once more. The scent of fresh vegetation was strong, but so was something else. Something faint and unfamiliar. She hesitated, her instincts warning her to be cautious. The younger elephants, eager to rest and feed, began to wander into the clearing. The matriarch watched them closely, her ears swiveling as she listened for any signs of danger. The calves playfully splashed in a shallow puddle, their trumpets of joy echoing through the trees. For a moment, the tension seemed to ease. But then, the matriarch saw it. At the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by a tangle of vines, was another snare. This one was larger, its metal teeth gleaming in the sunlight. Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. This clearing was a trap. The lush grass, the shallow puddle, the open space, it was all designed to lure animals in. And the snares were waiting. She let out a loud, urgent rumble, calling her family to attention. The younger elephants froze, their playful antics replaced by fear. The adults formed a protective circle around the calves, their trunks raised and ears flared. The matriarch moved to the front, her tusks lowered as she scanned the clearing for more traps. But it was too late. From the shadows of the trees, a group of humans emerged. They moved silently, their faces obscured by masks and their hands clutching long, sharp tools. The matriarch's heart sank as she realized the extent of the danger. These were not mere poachers. They were organized, methodical, and ruthless. The humans spread out, surrounding the herd. The matriarch let out a thunderous roar, her massive body tensing as she prepared to defend her family. The other elephants followed her lead, their trunks raised and tusks gleaming. But the humans were prepared. They carried weapons, not just snares but spears and nets. The tension in the clearing was unbearable. The matriarch's mind raced as she weighed her options. She could charge, risking injury to herself and her family, or she could try to retreat, hoping to outmaneuver the humans. But the clearing was too open, and the humans were too many. Just as the humans began to close in, a sudden, deafening roar shattered the silence. The matriarch turned her head, her eyes widening in surprise. Emerging from the trees was a massive bull elephant, his tusks gleaming and his eyes blazing with fury. He was a solitary male, a wanderer who had no herd of his own, but in this moment he was an ally. The bull charged toward the humans, his roar echoing through the forest. The humans scattered, their weapons falling to the ground as they fled into the trees. The matriarch seized the opportunity, leading her family out of the clearing and back into the safety of the forest. The bull followed, his presence a shield against further danger. As they moved deeper into the forest, the matriarch felt a surge of gratitude toward the bull. He had saved them, but she knew that their struggle was far from over. The forest was no longer the sanctuary it once was. The humans were encroaching, their traps and weapons threatening the delicate balance of life. The herd continued their journey, their shadows blending with the trees as they disappeared into the mist. The matriarch's heart was heavy, but her resolve was unshaken. She would protect her family, no matter the cost. And as long as there were elephants to roam the forest, there was hope. The story of the elephants and the humans was far from finished. But for now, the forest was quiet, its secrets hidden beneath the canopy. And somewhere in the distance, the low rumble of thunder echoed, a reminder of the storms yet to come. The herd moved swiftly through the forest, their pace steady but urgent. The matriarch led them away from the clearing, her instincts guiding them toward a safer part of the sanctuary. The bull elephant followed at a distance, his presence a silent reassurance. Though he was a solitary creature, his actions had forged a temporary bond with the herd, a bond born of necessity and survival. The forest grew darker as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the trees. The matriarch's ears twitched at every sound. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the distant call of a night bird. The encounter with the humans had left her on edge, and she knew they could not afford to let their guard down. The forest, once a place of refuge, now felt like a maze of hidden dangers. As night fell, the herd reached a narrow ravine, its steep walls offering some protection from predators and humans alike. The matriarch paused at the entrance, her trunk testing the air for any signs of danger. Satisfied, she led her family into the ravine, their massive bodies moving with surprising agility over the rocky terrain. The bull elephant lingered at the entrance, his ears swiveling as he kept watch. The ravine was damp and cool, its walls covered in moss and ferns. A small stream trickled through the center, its clear water a welcome sight after the day's ordeal. The elephants drank deeply, their trunks curling and splashing as they quenched their thirst. The calves, exhausted from the journey, nestled close to their mothers, their small bodies trembling with fatigue. The matriarch stood at the edge of the stream, her eyes scanning the ravine. She knew they could not stay here for long, the humans would eventually find them, but for now, it was a safe haven, a place to rest and regroup. She let out a low rumble, a signal to her family to settle down for the night. The adults formed a protective circle around the calves, their bodies creating a barrier against the cold and the unknown. As the herd rested, the matriarch's mind wandered. She thought of the bull elephant, still standing guard at the entrance to the ravine. She had seen many solitary males in her lifetime, but none had ever intervened in such a way. His actions had been selfless, driven by a sense of duty or perhaps a shared understanding of the threats they faced. She wondered if he would stay with them or disappear into the forest as quickly as he had appeared. The night deepened, and the forest grew quieter. The only sounds were the gentle trickle of the stream and the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. The matriarch's eyes grew heavy, but she forced herself to stay alert. She could not afford to sleep, not when her family's safety depended on her vigilance. Just as the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees, the matriarch heard it, a faint rhythmic sound, like the beating of drums. Her ears snapped forward, her body tensing as she listened. The sound grew louder, accompanied by the distant hum of voices. The humans were coming. She let out a loud, urgent rumble, rousing the herd from their slumber. The elephants rose quickly, their trunks raised and ears flared as they prepared to move. The matriarch led them deeper into the ravine, her heart pounding as the sounds of pursuit grew closer. The bull elephant joined them, his massive form a reassuring presence at the rear of the herd. The ravine narrowed as they moved, its walls closing in around them. The matriarch's instincts screamed at her to find another way out, but there was no time. The humans were closing in, their voices growing louder and more urgent. She could hear the clatter of tools and the snap of branches as they pushed through the underbrush. Then, the ravine opened up into a small, hidden valley. The matriarch's eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. The valley was lush and green, its floor covered in soft grass and dotted with wildflowers. A large waterhole sparkled in the center, its surface reflecting the pale light of dawn. But what caught her attention most were the other elephants. Dozens of them, their massive forms moving gracefully through the valley. This was a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place where elephants had gathered for generations. The matriarch felt a surge of hope as she led her family into the valley. The other elephants greeted them with low rumbles of welcome, their trunks reaching out to touch the newcomers in a gesture of solidarity. The bull elephant lingered at the edge of the valley, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had done his part, and now it was time for him to move on. With a final, deep rumble, he turned and disappeared into the forest, his shadow blending with the trees. The matriarch watched him go, her heart heavy with gratitude and respect. She knew that their journey was far from over, that the humans would continue to pose a threat, but for now they were safe. The valley was a reminder of the resilience and strength of her kind, a testament to their ability to adapt and survive. As the sun rose over the valley, the matriarch led her family to the waterhole. The calves splashed and played, the joyful trumpets echoing through the trees. The adults drank deeply, their bodies relaxing for the first time in days. The matriarch stood at the edge of the water, her eyes scanning the horizon. The forest was still, its secrets hidden beneath the canopy. But somewhere in the distance, the low rumble of thunder echoed, a reminder of the storms yet to come. The matriarch knew that and as long as there were elephants to roam the forest, there was hope. The valley was a haven, a place where time seemed to slow and the outside world felt distant. The matriarch stood at the water's edge, her trunk dipping into the cool, clear water as she drank. Around her, the herd mingled with the other elephants, their low rumbles and gentle touches creating a symphony of connection. The calves, emboldened by the safety of the valley, darted between the adults, their playful trumpets filling the air. But even here, the matriarch could not fully relax. Her ears twitched at every sound, her eyes scanning the edges of the valley for any sign of danger. The humans had been relentless, and she knew they would not stop until they had claimed what they wanted. The valley was hidden, but it was not invincible. As the day wore on, the matriarch noticed something unusual. The other elephants in the valley seemed restless, their movements tense and their rumbles tinged with unease. She approached one of the older females, her trunk reaching out in a gesture of greeting. The older elephant responded with a low rumble, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and fear. The matriarch soon learned the truth. The valley, once a sanctuary, was no longer safe. The humans had discovered it weeks ago, and their presence had grown increasingly aggressive. They had set traps along the edges of the valley, and several elephants had already fallen victim to their snares. The older female's own calf had been injured, its leg caught in a cruel metal jaw. The memory of it haunted her, and she warned the matriarch to be cautious. The matriarch's heart sank as she listened. She had hoped the valley would be a refuge, but it seemed the humans had infiltrated even this sacred place. She knew they could not stay here for long. They would have to keep moving to find a new sanctuary far from the reach of the humans.